Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for an overview of the 13 leadership blind spots. This webinar is based on the book, The Road to Excellence, written by Sandler's CEO, Dave Mattson. And the front half of that book is a deep dive into those 13 leadership blind spots. The back half of the book is an explanation of 6 P's: planning, positions, people, processes, performetrics, and passion that support leaders in mitigating or eliminating the 13 blind spots that we're going to talk about today. So there won't be an opportunity for Q&A on this webinar. However, you can tweet at us at the Twitter handle you see on the page, or contact us after the webinar and we'll give you a few mechanisms for communicating with us after the webinar. So please put yourself on mute and we will communicate with you after the webinar wraps up. The webinar is also being recorded, so it will be available if you'd like to review it after the webinar happens today. So diving into who's going to benefit from today. First of all, business owners. Now, as a business owner, you have invested your time and your sweat, your mental and emotional energy in growing your business, and you may feel that you're at a point where you can't grow it anymore, because if you do, that's going to completely eliminate all of the wonderful personal benefits and time that you've managed to build up over the course of your time in business. And I get it. I've talked to lots of business owners who have felt that way, and I believe that you'll come away with at least a few tips today around how we can overcome those blind spots and grow your business without impacting your personal time. Aspiring leaders. We believe that leaders are made, not born. So if you do want to aspire to a leadership position, whether it's within your own organization or you want to go out on your own and become an entrepreneur, take away from today, what are the blind spots that could crop up as you rise up in a leadership role so you can mitigate them ahead of time and be proactive. C-level and VP executives, those of you who are tasked with growing the business, setting the vision, taking the business into new and exciting directions, you may have fallen into these blind spots because you've been so successful in doing what you've been hired to do. I had a conversation with a CEO of a tech company a few years ago who said, we've had 300% annual growth, we're adding 25 people a year. And I said, do you feel like you're running up a set of stairs that's falling apart behind you? And they went, oh God, yes. And I said, do you want to put some concrete under those stairs and maybe take a breather every once in a while, get some support? And they said, can you do that? And I said, well, I don't really know if I'm the right person to do that for you right now, but if I learn a little bit more about you, maybe we'll figure it out, but I can tell you if we are the right fit, it's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to be really expensive. And they said, well, tell me what you need to know. If you haven't muted yourself, please mute yourself, because we are getting some feedback on the audio. And other business leaders and managers in the organization, those of you who have that difficult task of implementing the vision of the C-suite and motivating the front line to execute that vision. What I believe today is you will discover a number of blind spots that have cropped up in your organization through no one's fault, because we're all human beings, but you'll have the tools to support your leaders and the front line in mitigating those blind spots going forward. Very quickly, what's Sandler all about? Well, Sandler's all about knowing to owning. Most people stop at knowing. They get a little bit of knowledge and then they say, you know what, I figured this out. I read a book. I went to a course once. Now I've got it. And that's not the way human beings work. Human beings aren't light switches. So the support that Sandler provides to our clients starts with real world application. David Sandler said, I'm giving you sheet music and helping you make it sing in your world. So when we are working with you and your teams, we're looking to apply the concepts and tools and the mindsets that we have into the real world, your real world, so you can apply them more easily. Then backing that up with Sandler Online, our learning management program, has got thousands of hours audio and video reinforcement, including all of the videos from all of our sales and leadership summits, which happen every March down in Orlando. And then finally backing that up with reinforcement. Human beings are not light switches. So through consulting and training and coaching, we'll reinforce these concepts with you and with your people so that you are applying them and growing your business. But we're really here today to talk about those 13 blind spots that are outlined in the Road to Excellence. Number one, of course, is not having a process for hiring. When I talk to CEOs who are really frustrated about underperforming employees, the two most common responses to, well, what prompted you to hire them was, well, they told me they could fill in the blank, sell, and the best sales job they ever did was actually in that interview, or, it just felt right in my gut. Well, if we're going to make a decision to make an investment for our business, which there's lots of numbers out there, but the number that I've seen is 4.1 to 6.2 times base salary. Doesn't matter what the role is in your business. 4.1 to 6.2 times base salary to bring on board and eventually terminate a bad fit employee. So write that down, 4.1 to 6.2 times base salary, and then pick a role in your organization and do a little bit of arithmetic. If you're going to make that kind of choice for your business, having your tummy be the ultimate decision maker is probably not the best way to go about making an investment of that size in your business. And that leads directly to improperly onboarding, AKA the hire and forget model. Hey, welcome aboard. Glad you're here. Go sell, go deliver, go serve our customers. And when we're talking to owners and who are telling us about turnover challenges, when we peel back that onion, what we often find is there isn't an onboarding process that supports success of their new hires, and they come to realize that their turnover problems are actually happening way back when they're onboarding. Number three, failing to tie corporate goals to personal goals. We're going to dive into this one a little bit deeper later on, but I'll highlight with this. Your people don't work for you because they love you or your business. They work for you because working for you, they believe that working for you will get them to their personal mountaintops faster than working for somebody else. And when they do eventually leave and they tell you it's for more money or more flexibility or better benefits, what it really means is I believe that going to work for someone else is going to get me to achieving my personal goals faster than working for someone else. Number four, not creating a culture of accountability. Passion for me because my first book was all about accountability. And when we talk to executives about accountability, they say, we want a culture of accountability in our organization. Very quickly followed up with, but we don't want to be big brother or a micromanager. And that's totally normal because that's the way that accountability has been socialized in business, at least in North America. But what I've come to see and come to believe is that if you implement accountability in your organization, what you actually give to your people is a lot of freedom instead of handcuffs. And what you get back for yourself is a whole bunch of time. And as a leader, you're only valuable as your time. So if you have a culture of accountability, your people have a lot of freedom and you have a lot of freedom, which is your time back in your day. Number five, having no common sales language. Most people know Sandler for sales. And having a common sales language really means that everyone, at least on your sales team, if not across your organization, understands a few things. Number one is, what does your ideal prospect look like? Number two is, what are all the boxes that we need to check? What is all the information that we need to gather from the prospect before we even go down the path of investing time in a proposal or a demo for someone for no other reason than someone said, hey, I heard you have a thing, let me see it. You may have people on your team right now who all they're doing is chasing rabbits because that's their comfort zone. Or all they're doing is chasing elephants because they really want to see that big logo up on their wall. But if we don't have a common sales language, then as a leader, what you're doing is wasting a lot of time remembering what does Hamish believe is a good opportunity, or what does he mean that it's 50% closed? So if we have this common language, everyone becomes more productive. your cash engine is sustainable and repeatable and ultimately growable. But that also ties into not focusing on lead generations, the sixth blind spot. Now, if your sales funnel looks like this instead of like this, it gives your salespeople a lot of freedom because they're free to go out and really qualify and even say things like, we really appreciate you asking about our services. At this point, we're probably not the best fit to support you. We might be in the future. But when your sales funnel looks like this, they will say and do things that are not in the best interest of you or your business, like discounting or throwing a bunch of proposals out, which creates pipeline bloat because they're desperate. So encourage your people to always be adding new leads to the funnel every single day, every single week. Number 7, not capturing best practices. Don't let your people work in silos, especially when it comes to human interactions in your business. If you've got people who are doing really amazing things, create a culture where they feel comfortable to share that with their colleagues and with you. And by capturing best practices, the other thing that you do is eliminate a big fear of leaders who keep a long-term employee around who's not necessarily benefiting the business and in some cases may actually be hurting the business, but they've got so much institutional knowledge, their leader's afraid of all of that walking out the door. So capture those best practices so everybody can be communicating and working with each other at the highest level. Number 8, failing to train and coach management staff. We believe that the lead dog sets the pace. Active participation in training, not verbal support. So if we do end up working together, we're going to look forward to having you in the room with your people, learning and growing with them. Because what we've found is if there's not active participation, only verbal support, any work that we do together becomes flavor of the month, which means that you're probably not going to get the ROI that you expect, and then we have to have an awkward conversation that both of us probably want to avoid. Number 9, not building the bench. Leaders that we work with hear this mantra regularly. Always be recruiting. Always be recruiting. And what that means is in practice, interviewing at least 1 or 2 people every week, whether you've got an open role or not. And what I've seen with my clients is if they find a real rock star, a real A player, they're likely to find a role for that person. They'll make headcount for an A player. It may not be in the role that they want to be in or want them to end up in, but they'll make room for them in their organization. And even if it's not a rock star, but it's someone who you feel may be a pretty good fit for your business once you work them through your hiring process, when you do have turnover, it's much less anxiety causing when you can pick up the phone and say, hey, I have an opening in my organization, wanted to know if you would like to talk about it and see if it's a good fit for you with where you're at your career. Because in that case, you're hiring for fit instead of hiring for need. Hiring for need is kind of like a rebound relationship. Usually doesn't work out very well. Number 10 is not knowing how to coach. Executives who tell us that they're really good coaches are doing exactly that. They're telling they're not coaching. And what they're actually doing is falling into another blind spot, which is fostering a culture of learned helplessness. So I'm skipping ahead. I apologize to the process-oriented people on the webinar today. But when you tell instead of coach, all you're teaching your people to do is that whenever they run into whatever that problem is, all they do is go back to you. And as a leader, if you're only valuable as your time and you're solving the same problems over and over and over again, you don't have the time to work on your business because you're just sucked always back into your business. And that ties into blind spot number 11, is not sharing the vision with those who have to implement it. Unless your vision for your business is you performing every role, which in this case, this webinar may not be for you, the vision that you have is going to be accomplished through others instead of through just you. This is something that I've really come to realize as I've been working my way through the organizational excellence program for my business over the past couple of months, is that the vision I have will only be executed through others. So make sure that the others are on the same page with you, sharing that vision. And if they're not on board, that's okay. It doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that maybe they're a bad fit for your organization now. And then you can find someone new who does share your vision and share your passion, and they'll support you in accomplishing that vision. And the 13th blind spot is no methodologies and systems. So if we want to create an excellence organization and we don't have systems and methodologies documented, especially as it relates to the cash engine of your business, how you find, close, and keep business long-term and everything that goes into that, from hiring to coaching to accountability to customer care, then your people are just winging it. And they're never going to say that to you, and they don't believe that they're winging it, but that's really what's happening. And so eventually the cash engine is built on a bit of a house of sand. And it's not sustainable, it's not repeatable, and you end up getting sucked back in to the business instead of being able to work on that business. So I chose 4 of the blind spots to dive a little bit deeper into the rest of the time that we have together. And these are based on conversations that I've had with CEOs and owners and presidents. Just because these people had these blind spots doesn't mean that they're bad people or ran bad businesses. In fact, they ran very, very successful businesses, but they still ran into these blind spots because they're human beings. And the first one that we'll dive a bit deeper into is failing to tie the corporate goals to the personal goals. Now, to really activate this, and this is especially true in technical organizations we work with, IT and engineering as examples, is to leverage this blind spot, mitigate this blind spot, create a highly motivated team. You need to access a leader's greatest strength, and that is vulnerability. Now, vulnerability is a big, scary word, especially in leadership. But what we have found is when the leader goes first and shares their personal goals, their professional goals, not everything, they don't have to fully open the kimono, but share a little bit makes their people more comfortable and more willing to share. Now, where this will fall down, whether you're being vulnerable or not, whether you're sharing with your people, whether you understand their personal goals or not, is if goal setting is a check-the-box exercise in your organization. I've worked for organizations that we have an annual goal-setting plan, everyone high fives, lots of smiles, some good food, and then the goals get put away in a drawer or in a file folder on our desktops, and they're forgotten about until the next year. And yeah, sometimes we fail our way forward, and we accomplish some of those goals, but we don't know that until we go back and look and have a nice, happy surprise. So best practice is to review your goals and your people's goals, personal and professional, at least every quarter, if not monthly. I read recently that when an airplane's in flight, it is off pace, off direction, 90% of the time. So the pilots are always course correcting. They're not just going set it and forget it when it comes to where they're going to go. So if we're not course correcting, if we're not reviewing our goals on a regular basis, we may be completely off course and not even know it. And another best practice to take away from today is once you get to 80% of a goal, whether it's personal or professional, move the mountaintop out a little bit. Now, don't make my mistake where, in my corporate world, I'd get to September and I would have hit my sales target for the year. And I would say, well, I'm just going to double that. It took me 9 months to get here, but in 4 months, I'm going to get here again, which is really dumb. But move the stakes, because what you'll notice in your people is as they get closer in that 80 to 100% window, their motivation starts to slow down. So always be moving the mountaintop just a little bit higher. And that ties directly into accountability. And especially as a leader, are you willing to be held accountable? Human beings are animals, and animals have no capacity to process language. They only observe behavior. And so if the words that are coming out of your mouth are all about, we're going to be accountable, but your behavior is incongruent, you're teaching your people everything that they need to know about accountability through your behaviors. And then when you get frustrated about why they aren't accountable, and if we peel back those layers, what we'll probably discover is your behaviors did not align fully with your actions. And to implement accountability in your organization, make it from day one. You know, when you bring new people on board, whatever role it might be, you will know within 3 weeks if that new hire is going to work out. Now think about a personal relationship. In those first 3 weeks when two people really commit themselves to each other, they're doing everything to impress that other person. And if your new hire cannot be accountable to your onboarding program in the first 3 weeks, every leader I've ever spoken with hopes it's going to get better, especially if they're in a more technical environment or an enterprise selling type environment. I will tell you from experience that it probably won't. It might, but are you willing to bet 4.1 to 6.2 times the base salary of that individual on the hope that things might get better? And if you have this accountability program rolled into your organization, you're going to avoid performance whiplash, or what one of my clients calls porpoising, right? They're up and they're down and they're up and they're down every week or every month. Because by implementing the accountability program that's talked about in Accountability the Sandler way, you will know every week if your people are on track to hit their goals, hit their targets that you've set out for them. And in that way, you can be proactive instead of reactive when it comes to establishing commitments and holding your people accountable to hitting the targets that they've agreed to grow your business. Circling back on no common language, no common sales language, everybody has a definition of what 25, 50, and 90% close means. I actually recommend you completely eliminate percentages from your CRM or from whatever tool you're using to track your sales funnel, because they don't mean anything to everybody, to anybody. Everyone's got a different language. So instead, create stages in your funnel and non-negotiable checkboxes of information that needs to be gathered from the client, or activities that have to be done by the implementation team and the customer care team after the deal is closed. When I sold software as a service, one of the places that we found we started losing customers is immediately after the sale was closed, when we flipped them over to customer care and implementation, because we didn't have a common process for how that should go. So we were winging it, and our clients were getting frustrated. So it didn't work out very well for our clients because they were expecting something that we weren't delivering. One of David Sandler's rules is never do anything unless you know why you're doing it. And unfortunately, when we start working with our clients, a lot of times the answer that their salespeople give to why are we implementing or putting a proposal together for this client is, well, they asked for one. So there's no qualification. There's nothing on the prospect side other than a whole bunch of hopium that maybe possibly someday that they're going to close. So hold your people accountable to gathering information and teach them that they get paid as salespeople based on the amount of information they gather instead of the amount of information that they give. And what you'll find is you'll probably put in less proposals, you'll win a higher percentage of them. And once you have a common language around how you find, close, and keep business long term, what you'll also find is you are spending a heck of a lot less time in coaching sessions or doing training remembering what everybody's ideal client means or what everybody's version of 25% or 90% closed is. And that way you can be more effective with your time, again, which is your only valuable. Your salespeople's only valuable is their information and their time. Your prospects are taught to waste the first one and get the second one for free. I might have done that one backwards. And lastly, creating a culture of learned helplessness. So circling back to, does your vision for your business include performing every role in your business? I can't imagine that it does if you're on this webinar today. But what happens, you are doing this if you are telling instead of coaching. So when someone knocks on your door and says, hey boss, I got a problem, got a minute, what would you do in this situation? If you say, well, I do this, 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 and this, go to it. That's creating learned helplessness. This is especially true for leaders who have what we call domain expertise. So if you were an IT technician before you became an IT manager or the owner of the IT business, you're more likely to fall into telling because you have domain expertise in that area. So to escape this and trap yourself, create clarity with your team on what kind of authority they have to make decisions. And when they do come to you with a problem, train them to give you a succinct download of the problem, but hold them accountable to also bring you at least 2, if not 3 solutions that they've already thought of, as well as a recommendation for which one that they would go with. And of course, as their leader, you have the right to ask them questions or adjust their suggestion. But when you encourage your people to come up with the solutions on your own, what you'll find is you'll get a lot more time back in your day because they're already going out and doing things. And underpinning the elimination of a culture of learned helplessness is the 3 greatest gifts a leader can give: permission, protection, and potency. So give your people permission to fail, because they're human beings. And protection, that when they do fail, it's not going to be a gotcha moment. Our mindset is you either win or you learn. Now, I appreciate for some of you who are work in environments where there's safety considerations, you need to put some boxes around the permission that you give to your people. But it's not going to be handcuffs. And finally, potency is the tools to succeed in their current role. So if you're noticing a skill gap or a mindset gap or an activity gap in one of your people, work with them to build a plan, training and coaching, mentoring, to get them up and have the potency to perform in the role that you hired them for because they were an awesome person. Well, where do we go from here? Well, first of all, thank you very much for investing 30 minutes with us today. We appreciate you being with us for this webinar. All of you will receive a chapter from The Road to Excellence as a thank you for attending today. Look for that in your email once the webinar is done. So there's a few ways that we can continue talking. Now, if you are not located in central or southern Alberta, so think Red Deer to the US border, I encourage you to go to Sandler.com and use their Find a Training Center Location tool to locate the nearest Sandler trainer to you. Now, if you are located in central or southern Alberta and you'd like to start a conversation with us, a discovery conversation, because you've heard something today that makes you feel that working with us may support you and your team in getting to the next level and realizing your vision, send an email to that email address at the top of the slide with the subject line of "Let's Talk." Someone from our organization will reach out to you within 48 business hours after we receive that email to schedule our discovery call, which may then lead to a face-to-face meeting. Now, if you'd like to further your learning through contained online courses, David has built an entire course on the road to excellence, which is available through the URL that you see in the middle of the slide. Or if you'd like to learn more about the 6 Ps, planning, positions, people, processes, Performetrics, and Passion, join us for a lunch and learn on October 25th at our training center. All the details and registration are available through the URL that you see there, hamish.sandler.com/excellence. And everyone who attends that lunch and learn will get a copy of The Road to Excellence as a thank you for attending. So whichever way that we connect from here, look forward to having those conversations. Until then, we'll see you on the road to excellence.